Everybody, so I'm going to make a video about something, and it's something I'm pretty familiar with. So the economic disaster that is this coronavirus shutdown, it's kind of necessary. We're dealing with a virus. And the best way for everybody to avoid getting sick is for healthy people to stay home and avoid contact with other people, so that they don't bring the virus back into their houses, into their elderly, and they don't go out in public and cough on a counter of like a deli and have food slid across that counter. The virus lives for hours, and so wiping down with sanitizer is really important, etc., etc. Wash your hands, don't touch your face, etc. We know all that. All right. So the economic disaster, though, that's something else. So since about the 1940s, we've had this model of big box retailers, even before 1940s, because we had Macy's in the city and, Bloomingdale's and, the Lord and Taylor. So it developed this big box model, and other places copied it. And things that used to be a hardware store or a haberdasher are now a department store or a big discount chain. Walmart. Think about that. Home Depot used to be a hardware store, So here's the thing. These retail giants are going to go out of business. There's no way they can sustain that commercial real estate and taxes, the overhead, the payroll. I mean, this week alone, 3 million people were laid off. And it was only 2 weeks into it. 3 million people are laid off. And, here's the thing, is it used to be if mom and pop owned a shop on Main Street, it's a small business, that represented generations of work and savings being passed down from father to son for generations, right? They had a nest egg built up, and there wasn't confiscatory taxation, and there wasn't an estate tax. But now, we're 2 weeks into a virus, and everybody just has to stay home if you're not essential. And the economic disaster is unbelievable. We had one day where the market lost 3,000 points. 3 million people laid off in a week. And this big box model of retail, and everybody living hand to mouth. And then when they die, if they have anything worth holding on to, now it's $7 million. For years it was $5 million. If you have $7 million worth of assets, that includes land, that includes any real estate you own, any car collection you have, anything. The sum total of what you owned, your net worth, is above $7 million. Your heirs have to split that stuff up and sell it in order to make that tax payment. And if they don't make the tax payment for some reason, like the land doesn't sell, the car collection depreciated, whatever. If they don't make the tax payment, the IRS comes after them for generations. Do you understand? This is evil. There's no valid reason on God's green earth for the estate tax except envy and theft. That's it. That's all there is. And for generations, we had an income tax between, I think it's like 1940 something and 1960 something, where it was between 70 and 100% the top bracket for income taxes. At a certain point, you go, it doesn't make sense to put my boots on in the morning. It doesn't make sense for me to work any harder, I'll tell you that. I worked all summer, right? I worked like 80-hour weeks all summer last summer, right? And ordinarily I'm salary. Well, they made me hourly for that project because there was so much extra time involved, right? So I worked all summer working 80-hour weeks. So I should have gotten basically 2 paychecks. At the end of the summer, I didn't see one extra nickel at the end of the day because it was all taken in taxation. So now, what's the purpose of me working those extra hours? What's the reason? What's my motivating force to put my boots on? Other than to get the project done and to get back home to my family. What's the enticement? There is none. There is none. I lived without my family for 2 months. What's the enticing factor? What's the motivating force that's going to get people out of bed in the morning? If you're going to take everything they make, everything they aspire to, everything they look to pass on to their kids, to their heirs, for generations to come, to make sure that they can ride out these hard times, that they can, instead of going to college, start a business. Or if they do go to college, their business would be so much more successful because they have a nest egg, they have something to start out with. See, if small businesses are the engine of the economy, generational wealth is the fuel. When the government takes it, they're not using it to pave roads. They're not using it to feed hungry people. They're not using it to heal sick people. 54% of our federal government's spending is on military spending. They're using the money to bomb brown people. They're not using the money to help anybody. That's a fact. All the things we bicker about between left and right, 54% of our federal budget is spent on military spending. And for what? Nobody's attacking us. No. Seriously though, 9/11 happened, was committed by the Saudis. But we let it happen. And then we didn't prosecute it the way we should have. Instead, we prosecuted Afghanistan. We went after Afghanistan and destroyed that country. We went after Iraq and destroyed that country, knowing full well the whole time. It was right in the 9/11 Commission report, and the pages were redacted. And then 10 years later, they unredacted them, and it turns out, Saudi Arabia funded the whole thing. Go figure, right? It's unbelievable. 20 years of war. 20 years of war. And for what? That's what they did with the money. They didn't feed anybody with it. They didn't heal anybody. They didn't educate anybody. They didn't pave any roads with that. 54% of our money that was taken from us at gunpoint, money that was robbed from families, their generational wealth burned at the stake. Everything that I don't know, man. Everything. My grandfather worked his whole life. His whole life. He was born in like 1907. Died in 06. Died at 99 years old. Worked his whole life as an attorney. He was an heir to a huge fortune. Stolen. Absolutely stolen by the progressive left. And he was a Democrat. Right? Do you understand? Absolutely stolen. His father died in 1935. Do you know what that looked like in 1935? What taxes looked like in 1935? Absolutely destroyed. Destroyed generations of wealth. Right? My grandfather died. Left a huge pile of money. Government took half. Right off the top. Half. Left my grandmother with quite a fortune. Then she died. And the government took half. Half. You know what that looks like? You know what half looks like? Do you know what? It's unbelievable. There's no explanation for it. There's no logical reason for it other than just theft. Outright theft. And so now when we're going through a hard time as a country, the only solution is to print $6 trillion in a week. After last week, they just printed $3.5 trillion. That adds up to $9.5 trillion. How much $1 trillion is? If it was a stack of $100 bills laid on its side, $1 trillion would go from New York to Chicago. $1 trillion would go from New York to Chicago in $100 bills. A trillion is 1,000,000 times 1,000,000. 1,000,000 times 1,000,000. So if we have 100 million taxpayers in this country, 100 million taxpayers. Think about what $10 trillion printed all of a sudden does to all their wealth. Everything they had saved makes it absolutely worthless. You know, they had to say we have a run on toilet paper. You're going to be able to get lots of toilet paper from an ATM. What nobody's telling you is that 20 years of straight warfare and confiscatory taxation, that's what's going to break us. And now the printing press turning on $6 trillion in a week after a $3.5 trillion week last week, that's going to burn us down. That's what's going to burn us down. That's what's going to kill us. Stealing our money and bombing people who never attacked us for 20 years, sending millions of our youth into war, and having, even if their bodies weren't broken, their minds were. Thousands and thousands of people dead. Maybe even millions considering the Afghanis and the Iraqis. I mean, holy cow. We completely destroyed that whole region. It's back on fire like it never was. Every time it restabilizes, we destabilize it and send people off to war. Tip whole countries over like Libya. Absolutely burn a country to the ground like Syria. Throw everything into chaos like Egypt. Put a freaking drug trafficker in the front office in Afghanistan. That guy's brother is the biggest drug lord in the world. Did you know that? Hamid Karzai, his brother is a drug lord. Guess who sat all the pharmaceutical companies of the United States down with him? Our government did. And do you know why? Do you know why? Because it was good for business. That's why. It would get Afghanistan's economy up and running again if the pharmaceutical companies were suddenly selling opioids to our youth. That's exactly what they did. Our government made that happen. They facilitated that. So now we're going to print $6 trillion this week. Are you kidding me? They say, oh, well, Congress only did 2 trillion. And then the Fed agreed to print another 4 trillion and take it in paper. Nobody's telling you the other side of that. The Fed agreed to print another 4 trillion in paper. In other words, they took U.S. treasuries and agreed to print currency in exchange for those treasuries. Those treasuries are literally the ownership of the United States. Do you understand? They're literally agreements to be repaid at interest from the taxpayer trough. That's what that is. Confiscatory taxation is what's killing our country. What are they going to do with $6 trillion more dollars? We could pay off the mortgage of every middle-class family in the United States. And you'd still have trillions left over. Where's the money going? Where's the money going? Who's getting it? How is that being distributed? Because you know where it's being taken from. American families. It's where it's being taken from. It's not being taken from some rich guy. It's not being taken from Bill Gates. It's not being taken from Jeff Bezos, where they got hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars. That's not who it's coming from. It's coming from you and me. It's coming from us. We're paying for it. Our grandkids are going to be paying for it. Our great-grandkids are going to be paying for it, if they're still alive. That's what's killing us. It's not the virus that's going to wipe us out. It's our own government doing stupid on top of stupid on top of stupid. Chasing more and more money and power. Individuals acting stupid just to get more money and power. And just burning our country right to the ground. That's what's going to do us in. That's my video for today. God bless you, everybody. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay in the fight. We've got to take our country back somehow. I don't know how. I don't have all the answers. But all I know is I'm praying to Jesus. And that's all I got left. That's all I got left. I got nothing else to fight with. Stay safe, everybody. God bless you.